Hi, I'm Victoria Walker, and I'm the chair of the Women and Minorities in the Profession Commission for the Young Lawyers Conference, and I'm excited to bring you the first installment of the Pathway series. This series aims to illuminate some of the pathways, some of the different places your law degree can take you, and so for this first installment, I'm so excited to sit here with Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy. Delegate Foy is a public defender in Arlington County, and she was elected last year to the Virginia House of Delegates. So Delegate Foy represents those of you in parts of Prince William County and Stafford County, and so I'm super excited to be here with her today. Before I get started, I want to give a special thank you to Bean, Kinney, and Corman, who is hosting us today, and a special thank you to Ms. Juanita Ferguson, who arranged for us to be here. So we'll go ahead and get started. So much of the press surrounding your successful run last year highlighted how the outcome of the 2016 national election sort of prompted you to throw your hat in the ring. And I think that for a lot of people who were surprised or just discouraged by the election results, they wondered, how they could get more involved in politics, and I think where they should get involved. And so my question to you is, how did you decide that you wanted to run for the House of Delegates as opposed to a local position?
Absolutely. So I knew that I wanted to be down in the General Assembly because I saw a lot of the legislation that was coming out. I was offended by the Day of Tears resolution that came out that said on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade that the flags in Virginia have to be flown half-staff, and was considered an official day of mourning. And it was nothing more than an effort of some Republicans to try to shame and embarrass women, and it was a waste of taxpayers' time and money. So when I saw that, when I saw the fact that they were denying hundreds of thousands of people, of Virginians who are suffering, adequate health care or access to affordable health care for no other reason than because Affordable Care Act was tied to Obama, I had a problem with that. And so when I saw that they weren't talking about kitchen table issues that were really affecting the everyday lives of Virginians, topics such as transportation, teacher salary increase, things that would really affect everyday working families, I said that's where I need to be. I could be most impactful. And as an attorney, I knew some of the deficits in the law and where a lot of the draconian laws were that needed to be changed. So I said, instead of being reactive as a criminal defense attorney and fighting against wrongful prosecutions and things that we shouldn't even be outlawed in Virginia, or the way that it's outlawed in Virginia, I could be proactive and go down there and really be impactful.
Awesome. So you mentioned being an attorney, and I mentioned that you were also an attorney. And so, I can't help but notice how many public officials are attorneys or have legal backgrounds. And so I'm curious as to how your legal training and experience in criminal defense has prepared you. And you sort of mentioned this a little bit in your last answer, but how has this impacted your legislative agenda and some of your priorities?
Absolutely. So as a freshman, I actually introduced 20 bills, and 10 of them were criminal justice reform bills. And so being a public defender actually helped inform me as to what laws definitely needed to change. So there's a war on poverty in Virginia, and a lot of our laws penalize people for simply being poor. And so some of the bills that I put in would directly affect that. For example, one of the bills I put in was the automatic expungements for individuals who have been acquitted, meaning found not guilty of a crime. So not only have they had to go through the turmoil of being charged with something they did not commit, but then they're found not guilty, and they still have to hire an attorney usually, and sometimes wait months and pay thousands of dollars to actually have that then removed off of their record, so it doesn't hinder them from gaining future employment or ruining their reputation. So when you have people who understand the plight of individuals and where the criminal justice system have some unfairness and treat people not equal, I think that helped inform me as far as what policies that we really needed to push forward.
Awesome. So in preparing for this interview, I learned that you attended the Virginia Military Institute, and that you did so shortly after the Supreme Court's decision in U.S. v. Virginia. For those of you who need a refresher, this was the case in which the Supreme Court determined that VMI's all-male admissions policy violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So you were part of the third class of female cadets, which sounds really intimidating. And you've said that at VMI you learned to work with people who didn't want you in the room. I imagine that this lesson is relevant to the work you're doing now, and it's especially plain to me because I know that I tend to not be in rooms where I'm uncomfortable, and I feel like a lot of people are that way. So how did you learn this lesson, and how do you navigate rooms where you're not wanted now?
Absolutely. So at Virginia Military Institute, VMI spent millions of dollars to try to keep women out of its doors. And so I could say it was less than a warm welcome when we arrived. However, it taught you lessons that you otherwise probably wouldn't have learned. So there was a maturation process that happened as being one of the first women, African American women, to go and graduate from Virginia Military Institute. Because at the end of the day, it is a military school. So we are taught to be citizen soldiers, and the qualities of honor, integrity, and all of those things, that comes before anything else. And so understanding that these are not only students, but these are my brothers and sisters, and at the end of the day, we are in military training. So the job is to plan and execute. And you know, when you're on the field, it doesn't matter the color of your skin or your gender or what religion you have. I mean, you have an objective to get accomplished. So I think having that background absolutely translated to me going down to the General Assembly. Because again, we almost flipped the House of Delegates. So the Republicans went from being the majority to, you know, barely being they went from being the majority to almost being the minority.
Right.
So with that, I was able to go down there and, you know, talk to Republicans in a way that oftentimes didn't happen. To say, you know, I belong here just as much as anyone else. And to have conversations, and even though we may be on completely different polar opposites of policies and politics, at the end of the day, let's find out what we can agree on and push that agenda forward. Because I'm sent down here to end partisan gridlock and to work with you in a bipartisan fashion so we can push Virginia forward. And I learned those lessons on how to do that at Virginia Military Institute.
So you serve a very diverse district, lots of different backgrounds, ethnicities, political ideologies, very consistent with Northern Virginia. So how do you connect with and serve those constituents with whom you may have some deep disagreements with on policy issues?
Absolutely. So I ran to be the delegate of all people in the 2nd District, not just some. And so with that in mind, I like to meet people where they are. And I do not shy away from having hard conversations and saying to someone, what is important to you? Now, there's some social issues that we may not agree on, but I think everyone can agree that they want their child to get a quality education, or no one wants to sit in traffic for 2 hours to go 20 miles. So I focus on the things that we do agree on and making sure to bring jobs to the district, and that our children are being educated and the teachers are being paid what they're worth, and how is it that we can push the 2nd District in Virginia forward. And so when you have those conversations and talk more about what we agree on than not, I think that that's where the compromise is, and that's what I try to do. And so I try to lead and be the voice for all people, not just them.
So you've been in office now for about 6 months. What has been your proudest or most successful moment, and what has been a lesson that you've learned?
My proudest moment had to have been when I was getting sworn in. The day I was sworn in, and I was there, standing there in the General Assembly on the floor, and I got to look into the eyes of my husband, who made so many sacrifices and worked so hard to help put me where I was, and then to hold my twins at the same time, and to know, you know, that they will one day be able to appreciate what happened and the sacrifices that were made, and to understand that this is what my mother did under dire circumstances because it's so important and she wanted to build a better future for us. I think that was probably one of my most moving moments, because it was a culmination of everything, all the hard work and the sweat and the tears and the thousands of doors that were knocked and the hundreds of phone calls that were made, and, you know, the months of, you know, having swollen ankles and being pregnant and getting everything done. And yeah, I think that had to have been my proudest moment. And what was the second question?
A lesson that you've learned.
A lesson that was learned. I think to always have an open mind, right? I think that is the most important thing. I have learned a lot, I have to say, in my first year in session in the General Assembly. And a lot of people have said that I was easy to work with, that they like talking to me, that they come to me and ask me to be on their bills. Because I work hard, I make sure that I know the issues, and I try my best to ensure that I get the opinions of many people. because I'm not an expert in everything. So to talk to my constituents and to talk to interest groups and to always look on the other side and see, you know, how is this going to impact other people and what are the collateral consequences. I think when you do that and you come to the table with an open mind, that's what makes a good legislator, because even some people may take the position, I'm not going to support this because it's a Republican on the bill, or I'm not going to support this because of this agenda. But at the end of the day, we're there to represent what's best for all Virginians, no matter if it's independent, Democrat, or Republican. So,
awesome. Okay, so you and many people like you have really paved the way for young lawyers to step into positions of leadership within our communities. And so what is some practical advice? I think you've given some a little bit, being open-minded, but any other pieces of advice that you have for those who are contemplating a foray into politics? And I think that, especially with young lawyers at the age that most of them tend to be at, they're thinking about it. So how can you help them?
I think that's great. I say don't think about it. I say just do it.
Okay.
Right? And so as women, Emily's List and Emerge will tell you that we oftentimes will talk ourselves out of it, and we usually have to be asked, I believe it's 7 times before we actually make that jump into politics. But at the end of the day, if it's on your mind, if it's something that moves you, if you feel passionate about it, if you understand the sacrifice and all that comes with it, then I say just go for it. So the best advice that I received was put your head down and run. Right? Don't listen to the noise, don't listen to the naysayers, because they will be there, and they'll always be there, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, as long as you keep your eyes on the ball and you're in it for the right reasons and you're true to yourself, I say that we need a dynamic, diverse group of people to run for office so we can give people something to vote for.
So, good advice. Listen to that. Okay, and so I think my last question is similar to this most recent question, but you know, usually people who've accomplished a lot of great things in life, especially when they've faced some adversity in doing so, have received impeccable advice from other people who've sort of either been down similar paths or have a little bit more life experience. So I would love it if you could share what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and it could be keep your head down and run, but anything else that relates to either your career as an attorney or running for the House or as a mother, just what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Good question. As far as political advice I've received, it was put your head down and run, because there are a lot of distractions, and you will question your ability, whether you should, whether you can do it. You know, it's not the easiest decision to make, and it is life altering. So I think that was the best decision, because it's exactly what I did. By all accounts, I, should have lost my race, right? But because I believed in what I was doing and I had people to believe in me, then that wasn't the case. I have to say, life advice that was given has to come from my grandmother. So she always told me, be the change that you want to see, and if there's something you don't like, do something about it. So that has always moved me. So that's why one of the reasons I decided to go to Virginia Military Institute, because I thought it was unfair that women weren't provided the same educational opportunities as men, and I wanted to do something about it and prove that women are just as strong as men and physically and emotionally capable. So point proven. And then also she told me to be true to myself and keep my eyes on God, and I could do all things through Him. So that's sustained me this whole time.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me, and I'm so excited to have you in the House, and I look forward to all the amazing things that you will continue to do.
Thank you.
Everyone, I would encourage you to also, read up a little bit more on Delegate Foy. She has an amazing story, especially her campaign story is definitely something that is not run-of-the-mill, so I would encourage you to look into that. And then for those of you who may know other attorneys who have taken paths that are a little bit less traveled, or have taken paths that are well-traveled but have interesting stories, and would like for them to be featured in the Pathway series, please feel free to email me at walvic13, that's WALVIC13 @gmail.com, and we'll get them in front of the camera. But thank you for watching.